Hello, welcome to another Savvy Marketing Show. Chris Hallett's a very interesting chap. He helps businesses with their project management, but maybe not quite in the way that you're thinking about. And he's my guest on today's program. But first of all, roll titles. Chris, welcome to the Savvy Marketing Show. Lovely to have you here. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, hi, and thanks for inviting me onto the show. I started my first career. I was a musician in the army, and then I left and went into what was then called computing. Is now called IT. And for pretty much the last 25, just over 25 years, I've been involved running big IT projects, transformation programs in FTSE 100 businesses, but also in the National Health Service. The last 6-7 years of that is setting up and running within those businesses a program office. So program office typically brings together all of those big IT projects or business projects and looks at the governance of them, make sure they're being run properly, make sure they're all going to deliver on time. In the middle of that, about 9 years ago, I took a massive nosedive personally in my business because it's a very, very long story, but I'd been approached by a local entrepreneur to run a startup business for him. And it was one of those opportunities which some friends of mine said I should walk away from, but I went into it with 2 big feet because the guy said to me, he's a local multimillionaire, he said, name your price. Wow, nobody's ever done that to me. Anyway, I ended up as a managing director of his business, which was a startup made-to-measure tailoring business. After a couple of months, he pulled the plug on it. And he pulled the plug on it in such a way that I had no option but to resign from it. I resigned from it because he decided he was overpaying me. There was all sorts of terms and conditions he was applying. And I left that business mentally in a very, very poor place, to the point where, this little voice inside my head was saying, who do you think you are to run a business for somebody else? You're an IT project manager, you've been a consultant, it's all that stuff. And I went to see a life coach that I know. And she took me through a whole day session she threw all sorts of stuff at me: neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, Reiki, timeline therapy. And it was a bit like going to the laundry, but instead of washing your clothes, you're actually washing the inside of your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I came out of it thinking, this is amazing, and I have to learn how to do this. So I then went off and studied NLP, hypnotherapy, coaching, something called timeline therapy, to master practitioner level. And so what I'm doing now is applying all of that, I call it mindset training because it's dealing with people's mindset, to the world of project managers, specifically in and around IT projects. Because the fact of the matter is that even after 30 years of a lot of investment in project management tools, in processes, projects still run late and they cost more than they were planned. And a lot of it is all down to the mindset of the project managers. So that's really, in a nutshell, how I've got from being a computer programmer to being an achievement coach, working specifically with the project management community.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying, specifically about the mental health side of things there as well. Because I can relate to that as well, especially just what you were saying there. Who do you think you are? Being able to run this kind of thing. It is a kind of self-confidence thing. So how do you go about, first of all, finding out where the mindset is of a project manager and where it needs to be, and then getting them from point A to point B?
You can detect, and it doesn't matter whether it's a project manager, it's a business owner, it's John Smith down the road who's having a tough time in his life. You can detect most of it from their language, because the language is, the people's language is key to what's going on inside their mind. So typically, if you think about, let's take a project of launching a new piece of software. In a project manager's mind, when he kicks that project off and he's sat with the business owner, the stakeholders, his mindset at that point is, I hope, is we can do this, we can deliver it on time, and it will come in on budget, and the client will be very happy. If at that point he's starting to say things like, I'm not sure we can actually deliver it on time, it might cost more than planned, that's the warning sign that his mindset isn't exactly where it needs to be. Through the stage of the project, and particularly at the end, so at any point in time, whether it's the end of a particular stage of the project or at the end in a review meeting, what project managers typically tend to do, and I guess business owners do the same from the conversations I've had with them, is they start to blame people. And, we couldn't deliver it on time because there weren't enough resources. We ran out of money. The user testing didn't go to plan. The client changed the requirements. All sorts of excuses that person, the project manager, will make and point the finger at somebody else. The moment you're pointing the finger at somebody else, and I say you can detect this from language, that means that they have lost control of the project and their mindset has gone to the point where they actually don't believe that they can actually deliver this on time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you get them to the mindset where they can
do it? Well, the first thing is, I learned this lesson the hard way. I met a young lady at a business networking meeting, and she said, "Oh, you're a hypnotherapist. Can you help me quit smoking?" I said, well, first question is, do you really want to give up smoking? She said, well, not really. I said, I can't help you then. So the first thing is with that person is to identify with them, or for them to identify the need to change. Because at the end of the day, I can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. There's a model that I created called the belief, behavior, result model. And once you believe that you can achieve something, your behaviors change. Yeah. So it starts with that belief. If they believe that they're perfect and they don't need to change, sorry, I can't help you. Once they accept the need to change and they want to do something differently, then I can start to work with them.
Right. Okay. So it's got to start with them first.
Yeah. Yeah. This isn't something. This isn't like selling, computers or nuts and bolts. Yes, you can detect the pain. You can go through all those wonderful steps to get to the core of the problem. But at the end of the day, that person in my world has to come to me and say, I need your help, or my team needs your help. And when people, and quite often that's another detecting signal, is if somebody comes to me and says, my team needs your help, the first question is, what about you? Do you need my help?
Right. Okay. So at what point in a project you find yourself coming in? Is it, right at the start of a project, or even before it starts, or is it when a project is, started to get into trouble?
It can be both, because some people have the foresight to say, let's get this guy in to get things set up properly. Have a lot of those conversations and sessions where we actually start things off. And I've done this working within businesses as well. When I've been setting up Program Office, is actually at the launch meeting, we actually do a whole bunch of work around people's mindset, about the goals of the project, about how they're actually going to deliver this. It's nothing to do with tools or business processes. This is about mindset and about how you actually run yourself as a person. If a project's in trouble halfway through, then yes, I can still go in and actually work with the people you can never get back the lost time, but you can actually stop the rot setting in even further.
What are the kind of organizations that you find yourself working with most then? Where do these where are these problems more prevalent?
They tend to fall into two camps. So you've got freelance people, so freelance project managers or program managers who want my help on an individual basis because they can see the benefit and the value in having my style of training for when they go into businesses themselves. Because as a freelance, you're going to, you spend 3 months here, 3 months there, 6 months there. So that sets them apart from the rest. The other businesses I tend to work with are sometimes in the NHS, although that's a very difficult place to work in at the moment because of all sorts of restrictions. But typically, on sort of retail, and I call them FMCG businesses. You know, so the organisations I tend not to get involved in is manufacturing, because I've got no experience in manufacturing, and banking, because that's highly regulated, and the banking world is very, my experience is very cutthroat and very aggressive, and it's the sort of the softer businesses, you know, sort of small, not manufacturing, but people who are turning out consumer goods. I've worked with airport operators. I've done a couple of spells in the NHS, but it tends to be those smaller businesses that have got much smaller project teams, and generally they're more open to change.
Right. Okay. Just going back to the mental health side of things, because this is becoming,
it's a massive issue.
Yeah, it's becoming such a, well, I think it's always been a massive issue,
yeah,
but it's not been recognized, or it's been kind of shoved to the back.
Yeah,
nobody really wanted to admit anything about that. You know, my own personal experiences with depression and anxiety, you know, you get that. It's like the vicious circle, isn't it? It's,
yeah,
you know, you can't cope with this, or you can't do this, so you can't get on with anything, and your brain just goes into this, this real meltdown, as it were. You know, it can do that. So how, without giving your trade secrets away, can you share any of your insights into how you can start to address that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's interesting the point you made about us as people. I was at it was the anniversary this weekend of the Battle of Hastings, and we were down in battle for the weekend, and I met an author who's written a couple of novels, historic novels about the women in history. And what she said was fascinating, because in the last 1,000 years, we as people haven't changed that much. We're driven by our mindset and our emotions. And it's that sort of emotional health where I get to work with people. So, you know, it is a very involved process. So what's a quick thing that you can do is look at the way you run your life and the way you behave. And if you start finding that your words are, and your language is becoming negative in terms of things that I don't want to do, I wish I could do, this is all starting to set the rotted in installing, well, it's something I call limiting beliefs. So the decisions that we make that limit what we can achieve. So if you find yourself using those negative words and negative language, so I wish I could, oh, well, he's okay because, you know, he's got this amount of money, he's got his own business, he doesn't have to go to work, is flip everything that you say into a positive. Yeah. So instead of saying, I can't do, I'm unable to do, just flip it into the positive and actually tell yourself that you can do it. If there's a physical reason why you can't, you know, because of a disability or some physical limitation, that's one thing. But generally, it's the seeds that we plant in our mind that stop us from doing things. And likewise, with people that you talk to, if people start talking to you in terms of negative and tell you what they don't want, is ask them what they do want. You know, so I've worked with people who want to quit smoking. I've worked with people who have a fear of flying. And typically what they do is they tell me what they don't want. Well, I don't want to be a smoker anymore. Well, what do you want? Well, I don't want to be a smoker. Well, actually, flip that round. So what do you want? And some people find it very difficult and challenging to actually tell me exactly what they do want.
And is that because people don't actually, they haven't really thought about what it is that they do want, or
they just know because of the way they are. You know, so if you take somebody that is going back to the world of projects, if people are consistently delivering late, whether it's on parts of the project or the whole project, their whole mindset becomes about not wanting to be late with something. in not wanting to have a dissatisfied customer, in not being over budget. So I just get people initially to flip that round and say, well, if you don't want to be over budget, that means you want to be, I want to be within budget. So it's getting people to change their language so it's a lot more positive. Once your language changes, your behaviors also change. And
yeah, I was just going to say, so is part of that to do with the person's mindset, but can some of that actually be with the hierarchy of the organization that they're working in, say, pressures from above coming down?
Yeah, it is. But the only thing that you can control, or I can only control my own mindset, my own behaviors, therefore what I can achieve. I can't control your mindset, or if it's a hierarchical organization, I can't control my boss's mindset. But what I can do is work with him or her to get them to change their language. I did a session last week where I was actually talking about it's the end of that process of belief, behavior, result. When people start working at the result level, so think about projects. You have to deliver this project on time because the business will be in trouble. You could lose your job as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the big stick approach. And it doesn't work. So what I do is I work with that stakeholder, that business owner, to get them to change their approach and start further up that chain and say, well, okay, what's your belief about this project that we're running? And actually move away from being result focused to being belief and behavior focused, because that's where the real change happens.
What kind of reception do you get with, I'm just thinking, say an organization brings you in, they're having a problem with a project, and I'm Joe, business owner. There's a problem with this project here, Chris. It's not being delivered on time, and we're getting into real trouble. I want you to come in and sort it out, and speak to that project manager and get them sorted out. But then you come in and you say, well, actually, Joe, business owner, we need to start with you. Have you ever had folks saying, "Whoa"?
Yeah. So how I deal with that is I get people to do a couple of things. So John, the business owner, is very much, this is the project manager's baby. It's his fault. It's late. You need to sort him out. So what I then get him to do is to get him to step outside of sort of his persona, look at it from the project manager's point of view, put himself in the project manager's shoes and see all this stuff coming down, say, it's your fault, you sort it out. What I then do is get him to stand above, almost like a helicopter view, and say, well, okay, look at this holistically, look at the message you're sending to the project manager, look at how he's feeling and behaving, and then look at your own actions and what you're saying. And it's when we have that conversation, people start to realize that, hang on, this problem between these two people, the business owner and the project manager, this isn't one person's problem. There's two parts to this equation. There's the business owner and the project manager. And get the person to see that they're actually part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If they totally reject that and say, no, this is all his fault, that's probably time for me to walk away and say, thank you very much. I can't help you.
So how do people, how do people actually get to a point where they realize that they need you? Do you know what I mean? Rather than, it's just come on, project managers, just get the damn thing sorted out. Actually, how did they get to a realization point? Actually, we could really do with somebody to come in and sort this.
I'm doing a whole process of education at the moment, because this business I've worked in for 25 years is very much driven by the processes that people use to run projects, the tools that they run. And my sort of program of education is getting them to realize that this is more about them as a person and their mindset than about the tools and techniques they use. So, we've probably all done it. You read things, you read something and think, hang on, that applies to me. So that's when people start to come and say, you know, actually, I want to hear more about what you're saying. I want to engage with you. I need your help. It's through education. As I said earlier on, this isn't like selling nuts and bolts and widgets. You know, I'm unhappy with my supplier, so we'll go to you to buy them. This is about education and getting people to realise that, you know, they need to change, because if they keep doing, you know, it's Einstein's definition of insanity. If you keep doing what you've been doing all this time and projects are still running late, you know, that's insanity. You need to change something, and it's not about changing processes, changing the tools. It's about firstly, it's about changing this up here. It's about our mindset.
Just coming round to the tools, though. I mean, obviously, tools can help to make the delivery of projects more efficient. I mean, there's more you know, project management out there. So how do you look at implementing the tools with the mindset and getting those two to kind of marry up?
I tend to keep them separate. My work spans sort of two different areas. I still get asked to go in and set up and run Program Office, but the whole mindset training is completely independent, because that's about people. It's not about process. It's not about technology. It's not about there are some tools involved in terms of things I can give people to use, but it's completely divorced from the actual project management tools itself, because we work in people's mindset.
But I'm just thinking about the way that people communicate through the tools, because you know, so many of the tools now, they just want everything to be done. I'm the same, because when we're running projects, we try to keep as much of the project management actually on here, keep everything centralized. But do you try to educate people as to how to actually communicate through these tools as well, or is that just, you know, totally...
I tend to look at communication slightly differently, and again, it's back to the personal level. I think, yes, the tools are fantastic and they are incredibly sophisticated. What's happened over probably the last 10 years is, certainly in corporate business, people hide behind the tools. And whether it's you know, a project management tool itself, or Microsoft Office, or whatever other tool set you're using, people stop talking to each other. And it's when we talk to people on a one-to-one level, and we actually learn how we can read people's behaviors by speaking to them directly, looking into their eyes, we can actually communicate much more effectively. But the default, and I've experienced this in business, where people have sent me emails or status reports and they've been sat 10 feet away from me. Well, just get on your feet, walk over to me and say, "Hi, Chris, how do you fix this problem?" Because we'll actually learn more than just sending a one-dimensional email.
Yeah. So if there were, you know, 3 quick takeaways or 3 quick wins that you think, you know, people could try and implement in their projects, what would they be?
The immediate one is, I actually use a template. So if you think about all the things that you're going to deliver as part of the project, and it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, you setting up a website or a corporate business implementing a new human resource and payroll system, there are milestones that they have to hit. One of the things I teach people is taking those milestones or deadlines and converting them into achievable goals. That's available. That's available from my website as a project goal template. Am I okay to give the name of the website?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So if you go to harperhallettconsulting.co.uk, and Hallett is spelt with 2 L's and 2 T's, so that's harperhallettconsulting.co.uk. There's an item on the menu called Power Goals Template. That is a template that you can use, which will actually take you through 9 steps of how you write an achievable goal. So one of the big things that people need to do, and it doesn't matter if whether you use that template or you carry on doing what you've been doing currently, is if you think about the deadline that you've got to, you know, deliver your new website or this piece of software, is write it down as a goal, but write it down in this specific way. Because typically in business, when people are trained to use SMART objectives. They're trained to write the objective down in the wrong way. This is the correct way. And you start by writing, it is now, and you specify the date and the time, and then you specify the goal. So it is now, let's say, 5 o'clock on the 3rd of December, 2018, and I have completed the installation of my new website. So you're giving it a specific date, a specific time, but it's back to what I said about beliefs and behaviors. Because you've written it as though you've already completed it, your behaviors are different.
Right.
That makes sense. Because typically in business, people say, yeah, my objective is by Friday to have done. It's always in the future. So if you write it in such a way that you believe you've already achieved the goal, your behaviors changed radically.
So the date and the time that you're wanting to have done that, got that completed by.
It is in the future. It is in the future.
Yeah.
But you're writing the goal as though you've already gone past that date and you've achieved it.
Gotcha.
I learned this lesson some years ago on some training I did, and it was going into a sales meeting, and we were trained to say these lines before we went in. You are financially independent and you don't need the business.
Okay.
Because once you remove that financial if you're going into a sales meeting and your life depends on signing this deal for £2,000, and you're going to lose your house and everything if you don't get it, you're going to put yourself under pressure, and you're going to put your prospective client under pressure to sign. If you believe that you're financially independent, your behaviors will be very different in that meeting.
Yeah, I get that. Okay. This is really interesting stuff here.
Yeah.
So, listen, if people are, I'll put in the comments below the link to your website and how to get hold of that. But if people are wanting to get in touch to work with you, what's the best way to do that?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and if you go to my website, there is a button on the top that says book a call with Chris. So you can book onto a call with me. Like we're doing now, we'll talk about what it is you want to solve and work out a way forward.
Excellent. Well, listen, Chris, this has been a fascinating chat. Sorry we've got to wrap it up here, but I hope we can get a chance to talk again in the future. But for now, Chris, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.